and we should be live. Welcome everyone. Talking with I don't know the exact number of the episode, but we should be 170 or we should be close to that. I should check that. By the way, today we have Johan from I don't know where. He is the CEO of NHost, and today we'll talk about open source, which I think it's one of the best topics if you are a developer. So Johan, welcome, and how are you?
Thank you, Francesco. Yeah, I'm nice. I'm located in Sweden, by the way, just outside Stockholm. So I'm calling in from here. Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks for having me on the show here.
Nice, great. And I think this is a great topic. We can literally talk for hours about this. I also am a developer advocate for daily.dev. We are also an open source project. So maybe in the future we can also do some open source collaborations. This is also why I invited you. So, okay, so I don't know if you know this series, but this series is about tech. Nice t-shirt, by the way. It's about tech, understanding the developers. So, how did you become a developer? Are you still a developer? Because now you are a CEO of NHost, and usually that takes a lot of time. But this is your first question. Be careful, because otherwise I can also kick you from the live stream. So be careful with an answer.
No, I'm still a developer for sure. And I just today I did some updates in our landing page, for example, in Next.js. So I'm still hacking along in React, and I almost every day I contribute to pull requests and these kind of things with our open source work. And how did I become a developer? So this is I remember I borrowed a book from the local library on PHP, and this was 2007, something like this. So this was a Swedish book about PHP in 2007, and me and my friend, we were just hacking along, and we're playing around with HTML and CSS and stuff, and we wanted to build more more dynamic websites. So that's how it all started. Borrowed a book, PHP. We hacked along trying to get some like a MySQL server, I think, running, and we just started building things. And one of the first things I built was actually a CRM system for my dad's company. So I was he was running the company, was doing like papers and these kind of things, and I built like a simple CRM system, and that's kind of when I understood how easy it was and how powerful it was to be able to build whatever you want.
Nice.
So that's how it all started.
Nice. Thank you. I think I also, I think the first website, it was for my dad's school. My dad is a teacher, so yeah, all the memories. And also, like I see that you started with a book in 2007. It seems like another era, like 15 years ago. It seems like we are talking about like 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago.
We're not that old, though.
It's not. It's not. 2007, there was still the first iPhone. 2007.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's crazy. We don't have smartphones. Yes.
Yeah, we learned program before the iPhone. That's something.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so the topic is open source. So now the question is what is open source for you? What open source does mean for you?
Yeah, open source, I think it's just amazing, and it's kind of unique to our industry, right? It's not to be seen, this kind of way of working in any other industry. So I think it's just amazing. And for me, it's about standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So you can pick open source tools and build other tools around them, or extend them, or just continue working on something that someone has done already. And then it's about collaboration and I guess creativity, right? Collaborate on things you want to build. Be creative in like a technical way, and in the like a builder mentality way, almost, right? So you can it's like collaborate with others. I think that's
I like this one. I like this one. Now, okay, so now let me make a devil's advocate question. We are developer advocate, but also devil's advocate sometimes for a question. So, why should I create my project open source? Will people steal my idea, steal my code, and make billions of dollars while I stay poor and coding for them? So,
Yeah, that's a good question actually, and I mean we've seen some cases with this in the open source space. I think I'm not super up to date with it, but I think Elasticsearch and AWS had like some kind of beef between each other. But I think I would be more worried if, I mean, this is kind of like in business as well. Like, are you worried about someone copying your idea? I think you should be more worried if no one copies your idea or if no one copies your code, because then I would be more worried about that. When it comes to open source, I think it kind of comes with that comes with the game, right? It's open source, and so you kind of need to. It's very hard to sort of circumvent it. Maybe you can do something with licensing, possibly. I'm not sure, but I think this is just part of the game, and I wouldn't be too worried about it, to be honest. But if you're combining businesses with open source, I think you have to have a good kind of like business strategy around it. So for us with NHost, for example, and this is true for other companies as well, you can take maybe Next.js and Vercel. So Next.js is open source, where Vercel is building Next.js, it's open source, and you can deploy Next.js wherever you can run Node. But I think most people use Vercel because it's just easier. And it's so they build like a business around open source, but around infrastructure and making it easy to deploy, and the whole developer experience around it. And we're trying to do the same with NHost, where the whole stack is open source, but our business model is around infrastructure and around making it very easy to deploy and managing the infrastructure and hosting and these kind of things. So but in some cases that's not possible. Like Elasticsearch, I think they tried it, but I'm not up to date. But yeah, I think you need to take the bad with the good when it comes to open source in this regard, and think through how, if you're combining open source and business, how you kind of create a moat around your business.
Nice, thank you. By the way, if you have any questions, you can drop them. They are relevant. We will pick them up as soon as you post them, or maybe at the end. So, okay. So, Johan, please tell me more about NHost and how did you build this open source project? You can also start a little bit back. Like also, sometimes I like also to share a bit of the story of the project if you want. We have time, by the way. I am the boss here, so I can make this live stream go for a while. No worries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I started NHost because I was about to build yet another product. I love building products. Okay, I mentioned React. I love React, so I just love to build IT systems and web apps. And so in 2018, something like this, I was about to build yet another product. And at the time, when it came to the front end, it was very easy, like React, and you have all these different great tools for front end developers: React, Netlify, Vercel, GraphQL, etc. But for the backend, it was basically me either using Google Firebase or building my own backend. And so I basically wanted what Google Firebase is, but I wanted it to be open source, obviously. I wanted it to be a relational database, not a NoSQL database. I'm old school like this. And I wanted it to be GraphQL on the API layer. And also I wanted it to be just like I deploy my front end with Netlify and Vercel. I just git push, it gets deployed. I wanted the same thing for backend. Like I wanted the same nice experience. So those 4 pieces, I just that's what I wanted. And I went ahead and actually found out about Hasura, which is another brilliant open source piece of technology. Hasura, they have this GraphQL engine that sits on top of Postgres, on top of a Postgres database, and it automatically generates a GraphQL API for you. And so that takes care of the database and the API layer. And what I did was open sourced authentication, and storage to Hasura. And then I just built like infrastructure around it to make it easy to just as you go to Google Firebase and start a project, you can go to NHost and start the same project. You just get a different stack. So that's kind of how everything started, and how NHost came to be. That was a long answer, maybe, but
no, it's perfect. No, it's perfect because I like to understand how maybe you started from your problem and you tried to solve it. So usually this is
that's 100%.
Usually that's it.
I think that's true for a lot of dev tool companies. Like you, as an engineer, you see a problem, and then what's amazing with you being a developer is you can just build a solution for it. And if you have this problem, there's probably other developers who also have the problem. So if you build a tool that solves a problem for you, probably there are other developers who also have this problem, and so it's worth open source it or trying to build a business around it, or both, even better.
Yes, Daily.dev is a perfect example of this. I'm not here telling all the story now, but for example, we can also do something together when I can also share some stories, and I see some analogies here. I'll put some shameless plug somewhere. So it's very interesting. I think it's inspiring for a developer's point of view, seeing that an open source project can be successful. Also, Docker is a great example, maybe one of the best examples of an open source project becoming successful. So it's great. We need more of this, like to get inspired as developers, of course. Yes. Now, Johan, I would like you to go a little bit more in details on the features that you offer, because I'm very curious. I'm also working in the past with a company which does something similar to what I think you are talking about. So I'm very curious. I'm not working for them now, so I would like to know more about features that you offer, because let me say this. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I don't want to say that Vercel is doing easy stuff, but I think that handling backend in some ways can be even harder than deploying some front-end stuff. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Vercel and Next.js, even if I am a Docker captain. So which are the features that you offer as a backend, as an host? I'm very curious. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm also a big fan of Vercel, obviously, and Netlify and these products. So what we offer is, when you create a NHost app, you get like a full backend, meaning you get a Postgres database where you can create all your tables and columns. You get a Hasura GraphQL engine instance, like you get your own Hasura instance that generates your GraphQL API. Also takes care of Hasura is amazing. I can speak about hours about that too, but they generate the GraphQL API, they take care of permissions, and it's just a brilliant piece of technology. You also get authentication, so you can sign up users using email, Magic Link, SMS. You can sign up users with Google, Facebook, GitHub, etc. All these popular providers. And also storage is another part what you get that you get. So you can let your users upload files and images, etc. And then the last thing is serverless functions. So when the GraphQL API is not sufficient, it's just the GraphQL takes care of the basic CRUD things, so create, read, update, delete. But if you want to do more custom things, we also provide a serverless functions, so you can run and deploy custom JavaScript and TypeScript code. So those are kind of like the main kind of building blocks required to build basically any application you can imagine. And then also, like, I don't see NHost as just another hosting company. It's more, we're also trying to build a lot of sort of like a lot around the developer experience. So we have like a CLI, so you can develop locally, and that will automatically track database migrations and all track everything else you do in the backend. So you can develop locally, do your changes, and then push your code to GitHub. And then we have a GitHub integration that deploy everything automatically for you. So I mentioned this in the beginning. I'm a big fan of Vercel and Netlify and how they revolutionized the way front-end engineers can develop and push code, and we're trying to do the same thing for the back end. And so this is like a power feature from our side that you can deploy locally, do your changes, push your code, and we will deploy it for you. So we will track database migrations and specifically Hasura metadata and those serverless functions we will deploy to AWS Lambda, etc. So that is in a nutshell what we're doing. So like in summary, it's an open source, a Firebase alternative, and SQL, GraphQL, and this like nice developer experience around it, I would say.
Nice. I'm very interested. I think that I've heard about this just a couple of weeks ago, but now I'll for sure I'll try it because it sounds interesting. I have a lot of many technical questions, but probably I'll try it before.
Yeah.
So first of all, I don't know you, but I always like when someone is very open-minded, like that you also say that someone is doing a good job. We should always say this. For example, you said this for Vercel. And so, of course, on this question, you'll be biased. But what do you think that are your differences between your competitors? Or because sometimes the features look similar, but they're not the same. For example, the company I was working before, it was not exactly this. So which are, I think, in your case, the differences with other competitors that you know?
Yeah, so Firebase is obviously the biggest one. I already mentioned the differences. And then I think there are like three big alternatives here to Firebase. It's Supabase, it's Appright, and it's NHost. And all of these companies, they taken a little bit of a different path, but I think they're all amazing, to be honest. And I think it's honorable. Like I really like how it's the front end kind of was solved like 5 years ago, like with Vercel and Netlify, and they're ticking along. And now the backend has like the backend kind of solutions are starting to pop up. And all in all, I just want to build stuff, and I just want other developers to be able to build whatever they have, whatever they're dreaming about. So whatever tool you're picking, I think it's really nice that everybody is trying to make things easier here. But compared to, NHost and Supabase, I think are the most similar ones. We both have focus on a Postgres database. We are both very focused on making something like Firebase is doing, but more open source. There are some differences. We're using Hasura, so we've been focused on GraphQL from day one. I think that's one of the big differences. And then obviously we have this GitHub integration. That's another difference. So we've taken a lot of inspiration from Netlify and Vercel in the way we put up the developer experience for our users. So that's also something that we focused on. When it comes to Appright and NHost, also kind of similar, but they I think they've built they have their own abstraction between the database and sort of the developer, which is fine. But the difference, I guess, is with NHost and Supabase, you get like direct access to Postgres. You do whatever you want, and then you like build on top of that. Whereas with Appright, I think they have their own sort of API in how you interact with your database. I would be if someone from the Appright team is listening, and I'm not making it just like feel free to correct me, but that's kind of my understanding of it.
Nice. Thank you, Shubangi. How's it going? Yes. So we have a question. I don't know if you know Eddie Joud. Have you ever heard about him? If not, you should.
Oh yeah, of course. We were on the same Twitter space like a few days ago.
Nice. And we have never done a Twitter space. We should. So yes. So what's next? Because I don't know when the project will be done, which is basically it's a joke, of course. But no, but I mean it's so which is your plan for the future?
So in the near term future, we have two kind of exciting product updates. I think number one is a CDN. So for storage, we have a CDN coming up. to serve files much quicker. And another one is, I mentioned we have NHost, we're using Hasura, and they have their own console to manage the database, etc. So you have like a database UI. I think we want to try to make the experience a little bit more unified with NHost. So some parts of the basically, so you can manage your database inside our own inside the NHost dashboard. I think that's one. But generally, another big feature is preview environments. So just like you have preview environments for your front end, like for every pull request, there is nothing stopping us from having preview environments for the backend as well, with the way we're structured and host. So that's something that I really look forward to.
That's I think that's the heaven. If you reach that level with like that, you can see the preview. I don't know. From my perspective, can be really. I think it can be really a game changer because I think that the killer feature of Vercel is that one. Not because the thing is that the deployment is like you do this once. So even if you take today's you can get rid of that in some ways, of course. Depends on how many projects you create. But something you can create to use on a daily basis can change your perspective. And let me say something which probably now front-end developers will hate me, but on front-end, even if you make some mistakes, but let's say it can work, you can have maybe some, I don't know, some UI issues. But on backend, if you are calling like the wrong API, maybe it's connected to a payment, it can really be a disaster, and people not going, they probably on a holiday or something like that. So I don't want to put different levels. You know that I'm more a DevOps guy, like the one who stays like in the back, a bit hunchback with a black hoodie. So I'm more like that style of person. So of course I'm more, I cheer more for the backend people. So that can really make the difference, I think, because I've always looked for this, and at the moment I don't know if there is a single service who provides this. If there is, I'm not aware of this. So everyone, all my friends are here. So feel free, don't be shy, drop the questions in the chat. And yes, so going back on the open source projects, do you plan to support some projects, support open source? So how would you like to get involved, let's say, in the open source world?
So the topic of open source and support is kind of interesting, I think, because I would say there is some kind of incentive problem with open source. But I mean, from our perspective, the way we support open source is, well, first of all, I think we have 2 developers working full time on open source from our side, on all our open source tools that we're providing. So both SDKs and backend services that we have. So that's one. Another one is, I think, from our perspective, we also try to make it very easy for people to contribute. So new developers who find it interesting to help out, it should be easy for them to understand how to work with the repository that you have. So we invest a lot of time and effort into that too. But then also something we've been speaking about lately is also like this GitHub sponsor thing that I think us as a company and other companies should pay more attention to. And this is kind of what I said in the beginning with the incentive problems, because there are developers who maybe like you, Francesco, that sits in a black hoodie and provide awesome software, but and they're used by Facebook and Netflix and all these big companies, but they don't get a penny. And so I think GitHub can do. I think they opened up this sponsor feature, and I think companies like us and other startups and other companies who use open source software should use that to support other open source developers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a news, yesterday's news or the day before yesterday, that they opened GitHub sponsors for India. we know that there are kind of many developers in India and also in this chat, I think. So this can be also because, to be honest, I've tried to support some people from India, but it's hard to support them on GitHub sponsors. So now all my friends from India are trying to set up their GitHub sponsors. Please do that if you are from India, because now it's open. I hope that I got that to someone. We have Tapas, who is a friend of mine, who love NHost already. Didn't know this, so cool. You can stay connected. For sure you will like that. And nice. By the way, I've shared, I don't know if that's correct, but I hope you so. So I have shared your GitHub GitHub profile. You have many repositories, to be honest. Maybe you can someone can take a while and maybe take a tour of all the projects, but I see there are many. And yes, so perfect. Let's start with the questions from the audience. So what are your biggest challenges at the moment? Related to the project, because I also heard something in the background. Maybe it was the intern. I heard some screams of the intern in the background.
Okay, yeah. That's one of the biggest challenges I for sure at the moment, being a father. But related to NHost and open source, that's a good question. I mean, internally, I think it's just to, I mean, we have a lot of ideas, and it's just to align, maybe a little bit what you said, Francesco, in the beginning. Like, we don't want to talk bad about frontend and Vercel, but it is definitely easier to host a HTML or CSS or JavaScript file in a CDN than it is to host a full database and APIs and authentication. So there's a lot of things that are challenging with the way our infrastructure work, and we are operating, backends and databases for thousands of developers on our platform. So there is definitely that. We don't have a major issue at the moment, I would say. It's like the features I mentioned, those are kind of the big ones we want to get out as soon as possible. So those are, I would say, those are the ones that are our biggest challenge at the moment.
Nice. I also got your Twitter account. I hope that's the correct one. Double checked, but I think it's that one.
Looks fine.
Perfect. Nice. We have another question, which is, what would be your advice to someone who wants to get involved and be active in the open source space? I always get these questions like, how to get started? What's the roadmap? What should I do? So this is like it's a basic question, but I think it's one of the most important ones.
Yeah, and it's a very good question, and I think there's I'm not sure what the best way is, but one way is to find a problem that you have and try to build a solution and put it open source, and maybe as an npm package or something like this. It doesn't have to be the next React framework. It can be something much simpler. No one is going from crawling to running in one day. So start small, take small steps. Another good way is to get into a community that are building open source tools, like NHost, for example, or other companies or communities that are building open source. We and others are very happy to get contributors, and we can even set of time to help you get started and set up the environment and get you going with the first issue if you're interested. We would be more than happy to support you on those first steps. So finding a community and where you can get help to get started, I think that's a good one. And also related to helping out and open source, I think it's kind of like a hack if you want to get a good job. Like we are recruiting developers who are contributing to our code because first of all, we can see that they're good and they're contributing with good code, and we build a relationship with them, and they've showed interest in the product and these kind of things. So it's kind of like a hack if you want to get hired by one of these companies as well. So it's not only for helping out. I mean, obviously helping out and these kind of things, but I think it's like a hack to get hired as well.
Yes, and let me say this, that in Daily.dev there is one person who was an open source contributor to our project, so we hired him for real. So this is an emotional story. He's not the person who's been hired is not very active on social media, but I'll try to drag him somewhere and share his story one day. Lee from Philippines. So we have this question from Tresha, and she asks, would you say contributing to a open source project mean one hireable? So this is connected with what we were about to say exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the quick answer is yes, and if I want to expand on it, yes, very much, because you show that you can contribute with good code, and you don't have to we've had developers contributing to our open source, and we don't do a technical interview with them. We don't do a code challenge. We don't do any of those. Like we look at their previous PR pull requests and the code that they contributed, and we just know that they are good, and so like the recruitment process is like, I don't know, 25 minutes. Just make sure that they are nice people, etc. Because technically wise, they are good. So it's more of a culture fit, 30-minute call. So yes, very much. That's what I'm saying. And also, even if you are not getting hired by that company that you contribute to, when you're applying for another job, that company maybe will look at your GitHub profile and see what you've contributed to, and maybe look at some of the code that you've written. So that's also another one, which is maybe you will skip like a technical interview or code challenge just because you have your code open already, so people can go and look.
Yeah, I think honestly think that we need more people like you in the world, at least in the tech world. So I think that there are some issues in making interviews with algorithm, and I say this as having a computer science degree, so it's even against, let's say, my interests. But I honestly think that there is something wrong wrong with interviews like now. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I can just maybe
No.
before we take this question, I can just say that we've not done a single technical interview with our engineers. With their we've looked at what they've contributed and done already, and that's how we hired, and that's how it worked out very, very well for us. So it saved us a lot of time as well, and it saved the candidate a lot of pressure, as you say. No one want to start writing on a whiteboard, like some algorithm, like Fibonacci sequence kind of thing. Even if I also have like a strong computer science background. I have a master in computer security and all that. But
no, to be honest, I think this is the first time that we mentioned Fibonacci, but I have been had to deal with him for a longer time. You can Google that, and yes, I think that computer science is something totally different from coding. I've not coded that much in computer science. I've been learning math, physics. It was something very different, but I don't know. It depends also maybe on the university you attend. But usually it's more about theory and something that you really don't use in the day-to-day life. I never say that that's not worth, by the way. What's the maintaining pattern of your project? Padumna is amazing, by the way. Are you all maintainers part of the company? I think this is asking like that there are all the maintainers of the company.
Yes. So if you're asking if all maintainers for our open source projects are part of the company, the answer is no. I think for our main repository, I think we have like 30 or 35 contributors, and maybe 3 or 4 of them are part of the company. So that's kind of the distribution. I think 90% of all the maintainers or contributors are outside the company. That being said, if you look at the code distribution of it, I would say maybe it's different. I mean, it's 75 to 80% of all code that we contribute to our open source tools are written by someone employed at NHost. So maybe, don't quote me on the numbers, but maybe 15 to 20% of all code comes from outside the company, let's say.
Nice, cool. And now, not a question, but a deserved compliment. Johan seemed like a should CEO for sure. We need more people like you, just as Francesco said. Yes, nice,
That's
nice. Some
nice to say.
compliments are never bad, especially at the end of the day. At the very beginning and at the end of the day, they're the best moment. If you want to compliment me or Johan, you can do that. You can do this all day long, but especially to start a day and after a day of working, those are the best moments. Okay, so you can keep doing me your questions. I'm really enjoying this the stream, by the way. I have just one more question for you, which is about mistakes. So which are the mistakes that you see people doing maybe when they contribute to open source? Let's talk about the open source, because we can talk about mistakes in life, but maybe it's better to focus on the open source and development stuff. So maybe what you see some people is doing something wrong. You can also don't say names, just a fact.
I haven't thought about this question actually. So what are people? What kind of mistakes are people doing in when they're contributing to open source? Maybe that they're not contributing enough. Like I think maybe people want to do things, but they're like maybe afraid of getting feedback or afraid of making something wrong, or maybe they don't want to write the code because they know that someone's going to critique them, which is I think the wrong mindset. I think you should just do and publish as much as possible, and then you get feedback so you can get better. That's the only way. But in terms of
and I think
that's a tricky one. Maybe
I think
do you have some ideas?
I think the fact that you don't have some, I think maybe a mistake. I don't know if they will call this a mistake. Maybe stop contributing if you get a PR closed. Some friend maybe or some people maybe they really take it personally. Like you closed by PR, you don't like me. It should not be like that. It's usually, I say this because also even me at the beginning also, or for example, I don't know, let's say that you make a contribution. Some people maybe the maintainer makes maybe a comment on the PR, but it's not a direct attack on you. Maybe they say, I don't know, maybe this part is already done, or we don't need this part, can you remove it? Of course, usually the maintainer is not there to attack you or to insult you, but it's a maintainer, usually they know how the code works, what do you need, and they are not there bothering you with all the stuff which probably you could know if you read all the documentation, but usually some people they read some parts. But so maybe this is a mistake. It can be to stop if you get some feedback from a maintainer. So it's you should not even stop if you get a hateful comment, but even less if you get some maintainer if they are polite. Usually, from my experience, even the worst maintainer usually is kind of calm when they reply. I don't know.
No, but you're right, and no, that's a good point as well. So yeah, kind of like leave your ego out of it and just look at the critique objectively. I think that's a good one. Maybe when we're talking about contributing and these kind of things, another one that I think, if you don't want to start contributing code to a repository, it's also very helpful to contribute with issues and comments on other PRs, or write clarify documentation. Other non-code contributions are also beneficial to all open source, everything related to open source. So that's another one that I just want to flag. I remember we spoke about this with Eddie in the other Twitter space, and it's actually a really good tip. Like, there is so much more to code than code that you can contribute to open source projects.
Nice. And I made a poll at the beginning of the live stream, which was, do you like open source? And we got 16 out of the 16 people saying yes. So this is the proof that there are no trolls in this live stream yet. So, and yes.
Everybody acting nice. That's good.
Yes. I was hoping for something like that, but we didn't have it. Yeah. And yeah, Pratim says, like, I feel opening an issue and then not following up is one mistake also. Yes. So it's like, maybe what you can do is start something small and you will have to contribute. And yes, to talk about the maintainer and PR process, I think it's great. Even before getting hired from a company, at least to understand how the process of comments on a PR work. It can really be a game changer. Like if a company hires you, even if you have a master's degree, but if you don't know, if you have never done a PR on GitHub, it sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? So it's like, okay, so maybe you know a lot of stuff, but you don't have practical experience. So maybe you have to deal even with practical stuff. So it's interesting. And I think that we should solve this as soon as possible, because at some point we will have to deal with that. It's not just about GitHub, of course, all the Git stuff, but I mean, this is like about the collaboration. So the earlier the better. So yes, absolutely. Nice, Johan. So let's start to wrap this first episode, but I'm sure that we will keep doing something together. And yes, by the way, I really love the t-shirt. If you'll send me one, I'll make a post, because it looks like the Italian national color. The color is very similar to the Italian football club one. So I love that color. I love that blue. Nice, perfect. Okay, so let's start to wrap this up. If you still have time to drop one or two more questions, but let's make a conclusion. So, how can people build a good open source project, and how can they contribute? I think there are many beginners or maybe young developers or fresh developers in the audience. So what's your message from you as the CEO of NHost, of course, and also as a developer?
Number one thing is get started. I think the easiest way is to get started finding a community and ask for simple issues that you can help out with. As I said before, it doesn't have to be code. It can be creating issues, writing documentation, giving feedback on other pull requests, and these kind of things. And then just gradually work yourself up. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, I feel like the developer community is so friendly. Like, if you ask questions, they would be happy to explain and help you, etc. So don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you think it's a stupid question. Just ask question and go for it, because we've all been there, right? And so we know what it's like to have someone helping you out. It means the world. So I think those are the big ones, I would say.
Nice. And I would like to end this episode by saying that I've never witnessed a community so supportive as a developer once. All the people that are coming to the tech world development from other jobs, they are impressed. Like things like GitHub, it would be very hard to have this maybe on different communities, different jobs, like people contributing for free in quotes. So it's something that so it always impressed me, and I'm still impressed by this every single day. So yes, let's keep going. I think this is what really makes the developers a bit different, we can say. Like a bit, we have this like strong connections between us, talking about PRs, contributions, but all this kind of environment, it creates something good. Honestly, think it really can make the difference. But I'm talking about the community, all the developers, not just the one. The fact that developers support each other instead of being like competitors, it's great. I will never get used to this, to be honest. And this is one of the reasons why I also stayed in tech, because I really love this part. It's mind blowing every single day. So keep going. And of course, being a part of an open source project, it's not easy, but in the long run can make the difference, can attract more developers. You need to create a good environment. But once you understand that open source can really change your life, I think that's where you start contributing to open source, being connected with like-minded people. This is super important, being connected with people who have the same open mind, like Eddie or other people. Nice.
I can just add to that. And like if we look at open source from the other part, like we talked about candidates who maybe want to get hired, but if we look from the other part, where on the business side of things, I can say it's so much easier to attract talent because there are so many developers who want to work on open source software. So NHost being an open source company, providing a lot of open source tools, the fact that we do that makes it easier for us to hire other developers because they want to be part of this open source community, and they want to be part. They don't want to just write code in isolation. They want to be kind of part of the community. So from the company side of things, there's also a lot of benefits to have your code open source.
Yeah, can we say that basically you attract the best ones, maybe in some ways?
Yeah.
Nice. So other compliments. I hope that I don't miss some compliments. They got a chance to witness the coolest CEO. Thanks, Francesco. So thanks to me, they watched you. Perfect. Okay, they have also some compliments for me, and perfect. Okay, so Johan, thank you so much for being in this first collaboration. I don't know. Next time I probably will be either in a Twitter space. Or maybe a live stream of me trying some NHost stuff, or I don't know. We'll find some ways. But thank you so much, and yes, thank you so much in the chat. You can start saying bye, and yes. So we are done for today. It has been a kind of a long day, and we're still at the half of the week. I started working on Sunday, so tomorrow it will be my Friday. So this is very good for me. Chris Ream, thank you. Graham is a colleague of mine, and perfect. We are done. I hope that you had enough open source for today. We know that you will never have enough, so for sure we can make a space talking about some topics. I don't know why, but it seems the same topic, but every time I do an open source content creation to be live stream with the space, I always see the things from another point of view. You always something else to add. I never get bored. I really can understand the Johan and talking about open source literally 24/7. So it's amazing. Thank you. Perfect. We're done. Bye everyone. See you next time. Of course, remember to contribute to open source project. Bye-bye.